Hi, it's Heather Lee Cameron. Wow. Survivor. What can be said about Survivor? Holy crap. Did you really see that coming? I mean, I saw a little bit of it because right before I was watching it, I saw this little article about Zeke talking about an attack from Varner, and I'm like, an attack? I was thinking physical, and the rules clearly state you can't hit anyone, so I was thinking, oh, what's that about? So I watched the episode, and wow. Wow, 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 wow. In Tribal Council, Jeff Varner stated that Zeke is secretive because he is transgender, and he keeps that a secret, so he's perfectly capable of keeping other secrets. And it was if someone set off a bomb at the Tribal Council. Everything just went out of control. Everybody was shouting and cursing and yelling at Jeff, glaring at him. Jeff was just flabbergasted, and everybody started going on about how Jeff Varner is a gay and transgender hater, and it's like, no. He was only desperate to stay. And when people are desperate, they do things that not desperate people wouldn't do. And I mean, it doesn't make it okay. But you know, Survivor is a game. Survivor's a very intimate game. You're taken away from your comforts. You're taken away from what you know. You're put on in an island or whatever with a group of strangers. Complete strangers, unless it's like a blood versus water season or whatever, or an all-star season. Complete strangers. And you're put into these tribes and you're told to make it work. And so you don't really have the choice but to make it work. And everybody comes from different walks of life, as has always been the case. All-star seasons are interesting. Returnee seasons are interesting because the castaways all know each other outside of the game, because they all socialize at the Survivor after parties and the finales, and it's just a wonderful, interesting thing. I have personally never been to a Survivor finale live. I would love to someday. I would love to be able to go to Los Angeles and sit in the audience and enjoy myself. I don't know about the after party though, as I'm not big into parties where there's alcohol, but that's besides the point. Anyway, back to this. You know what? People get invested in the game, but you have to be careful about what you say when you become invested in the game. You really do. I mean, Zeke obviously hadn't told everyone in his life about him being transgender, and I mean, Varner inadvertently outed it because he thought everyone knew, or that's what he said. But you know, it wasn't his news to tell. And we could get into a whole discussion about human rights. I mean, I think we will. Everyone has the right to live as they will. Everyone has the right to love life according to how they've made it. You know, and I don't personally ever discuss my family, but I'll go there for a minute as to explaining my reasoning behind why I was so emotional over this. But I have a cousin who in the last few years has transitioned from female to male, and I will love my cousin no matter what. Not everyone in my family has grown used to the idea, but they're slowly coming around, and I love my family no matter what. But when I learned of this cousin's gender change. I let the cousin be the one to tell people about it because it wasn't my place to tell people. It wasn't me going through the gender change. It was my cousin. So I allowed my cousin to be the one to share that news because it was their news to share. My heart broke tonight when I saw everything go down at Tribal Council. I mean, you might think that being a straight white female doesn't mean discrimination applies to me. Sadly, it does. I have something called nonverbal learning disorder, and it's similar to autism, and people know what autism and Asperger's is, or they should. And people have thrown my disability in my face in the past in the spirit of maliciousness in order to save themselves from trouble or get their way or keep me from having an opportunity. And you know, it hurts. It hurts to have your way of life, your beliefs, and your comfort level stepped on. Simply by someone who is so desperate to rescue themselves from trouble that they'll drag you through the mud. And I'm really not trying to condemn Jeff. I mean, it's a game. People's personalities change. People are not themselves when they compete in things. I get slightly aggressive when I compete in stuff, and usually I'm just a laid-back, chill person, but I really want to do well in things that I compete in, so I get slightly aggressive and I turn into this real domineering little powerhouse. And sometimes I trip myself up because, you know, with my NVLD, I don't have the social skills that most people do. And so I sometimes trip myself up with misappropriate words or say things in a way that make me sound like a jerk. I see the world differently, so I understand Zeke's side. I also have a passion for competitiveness, so I see Varner's side. But this is a game, for crap's sake. Survivor is nothing more than a game. And so, I say this. We all have the right to live as we please and love how we live. We also have a responsibility to love one another and an obligation to play the game of life fairly, and that we should never view another's choices as a weakness that needs to be used to further your own self. Success and safety should not be achieved at another's expense. You know, after this whole episode, I was wondering, why don't the survivors have a counselor on the beach, like in a little area that could be used as maybe a counseling area? And then we see segments of maybe the survivor talking to the counselor in private as part of their confessionals. I mean, this game is so intense, and it's probably very mentally exhausting. So why doesn't CBS provide a counselor for the survivors? While they're in the game, it would add an interesting dynamic to it, and it wouldn't be influential. I mean, the counselor could just be there to listen to feelings being vented and not offer really anything, but then the survivors might feel as if they're being heard and that it's easier. Or they could even be allowed to, I don't know, have therapy, writing time, like write letters to themselves, other people, or just whatever, therapy, like activities maybe. Or they could even do some sort of therapeutic thing for rewards, just so it's not so stressful. I mean, they already do that. But when I was watching the earlier episode with Debbie going to Exile Island and talking with Cochran, that was kind of what I'd like to see all the time. is the survivor that goes to exile or something like that gets to talk to an alumni of the game and really just vent and be given advice. I mean, it shouldn't be just a one-time thing because it's a very, very popular game. It's probably going to go on forever. It might outlive me. I don't know. I doubt it, but it might. This whole thing has just gotten out of control, and two people were hurt tonight. Varner became hurt when he realized what he said. Because sometimes in the heat of the moment, people say things, and then they realize what they said, and they realize that they have just caused themselves great pain by lowering themselves to a place where they wouldn't normally go. And Zeke was hurt by Varner's words, but he handled it so very gracefully, and we have to give him kudos for that. Of course, people are going at me for spoiling, but I don't really care. I mean, I watch Survivor when I choose to watch it, and if people are upset about the spoilers I post, they do not have to go on my Facebook until after they've watched it for themselves. The spirit of maliciousness truly graced Tribal Council tonight, and it's truly sad, because this is what happens in games. Normally good, decent, hardworking people get in the competitive spirit, and when the chips are down, when things are difficult, they forget who they truly are. And they lose it, and they compromise the good person that they are in order to look like they're playing the game. But you know what? There shouldn't be a real life self and a game self. Those two selves should be locked together, and you should be your real self even if you are playing a game. And you should love who you are. You should take responsibility for the strategy that you make, because even if it's not a successful strategy, at least you're standing by it and owning it. And that will get you more respect than anything in the game of Survivor. Anyway, there's so much more I could say, but I can't find the words to say it. What a wild episode. Take care. Bye.